Tom is going to, Tom's been with the company since 1999. Can you do the math that quick? 16? No, 17 years. And yeah, he is our CIO on our strat committee, integral part of the team, leadership team here, and he's going to teach a quick section on the culture of leadership, innovation, and then we're going to kick it over to Boston and do OS for culture. So, Tom, you can feel free to go over as well if you want.
We'll make it. I am an engineer, so that means a 90% likelihood I'm insecure. I am insecure. As Charlie likes to, I guess, command an audience and loves being in front, I don't necessarily. So it's kind of a learned skill. But so I'm going to give you an overview of how we here at NextJump think about innovation and building a culture of innovation, really creating behaviors in ourselves and our colleagues that lead to good things happening, leading to change in the business, and how we set that up. After that, one of our key younger engineers, John Hilliard in Boston, is going to take you through what we're doing from a technology perspective in terms of how we're building tools to help other companies build this type of thing into their environment. So we can go to the next page. I need someone to drive. You can do that first. So an environment for innovation. This will be our thing. So it really starts with a really simple concept. This is sort of given in the internet world, but an ethos of release fast and iterate like hell. Charlie already said that and kind of foreshadowed this. But the reality we have to learn to accept, especially when building products or looking to do things that are hard, which is we're in a very competitive environment. To make a product that millions of people actually use and put their money down is a hard thing to do. And the reality is, whatever brain farted of an idea that you have, it's not going to work. The high-level concept could be wrong, the implementation could be wrong, there's 10,000 reasons why it's not going to work. In all likelihood, it's not going to work. So starting with that idea, or starting with that ethos, that no matter what you do, maybe you're pointing in the right direction, you're probably pointing in the right direction, the more experienced you are, and kind of have a sense of things. And in general, what I want to build for my product or change in a process for the company or new thing to teach, whatever it is that you're trying to do, the reality is it's unlikely to work. And so with that in mind, we have this phrase you'll hear a lot around here, that speed is your only competitive advantage. You want to get your idea up and running quickly as fast. Don't worry about the quality of the code at first. There'll be time to make it better once it works. But the idea is you learn nothing by sitting still. But when you start doing things, that's when you figure out, are you wrong strategically? Are you wrong in execution? What is wrong? You start getting data points to actually refine. So that's kind of the most fundamental baseline rule, is starting from that kind of mindset, that even if I have the best idea in the world, it's still unlikely to work. So I just need to start moving and getting data to figure out how to make it better. Go to the next page. And that really comes around, I read this a few weeks ago, I think it was in a Harvard Biz review article, but innovative teams are level-headed about failure and comfortable with the inherent messiness of experimentation. The magic for innovative teams is not something's initial light bulb moment, but the commitment to assessing, refining, and reintroducing the systems that will make the thing work. That's really what it's all about. It's less about an idea, it's about a process that you're trying to create some outcome. And really, at the end of the day, who cares how that outcome happens, what product, what system, what new thing that you invent. But if you're committed to solving that problem and then commit to the process of solving it, good things happen. But when you commit to an idea that I have some amazing thing that I'm going to build, this particular new product, this new app, this new widget, when you commit to an idea, it's just it's like spinning the roulette wheel. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I just came out of a meeting now where we're all about selling our customers tickets. So we sell millions and millions of tickets every year, from Yankees tickets to movie tickets to Disney tickets. And we're thinking about all different products to make that better. But every product idea we're less committed to than the idea that we actually have real value. We can save, we know our members are going to spend millions and millions of dollars, and we can save them millions of dollars. We're committed to that idea. But when you're committed to the idea, that's different than committing to the actual execution of a particular solution. Go to the next page. Actually, go back one. I think this room is actually a good example of that. The Francesca here is actually the example. So one thing we're involved in as a company is something called Project Flagship, which is the upgrading of our physical environment. So we spend a lot of energy and kind of resources internally thinking about building on company culture, which is partly why you're here. We want to make our physical environment reflect that. So right now, we've been in this office for a long time. It looks sort of like a kind of a tech office. It's not that inspiring. So I think you, in the culture tour, you may have saw pictures of our new office, which is really intended to be a physical space that it's like a machine. Like people work the same way you go to a gym and you kind of work out on the treadmill. The office should be your machine for performance, and we want to make this the most amazing machine for performance ever. But we're going to spend a lot of money to do it. So we're running a lot of experiments to see what should we put in this space, what will work, what won't. So we built a gym. We sort of had a workout space that became the gym that you may have seen. We have the spin studio. Seeing is that an effective thing? This room in particular, the garden. One element we're committed to is actually having like greenery in there and increasing the level of oxygen and creating different flexible workspaces. But Francesca here, we went through a bunch of iterations and figured out what kind of plants to buy. So we spent $30,000 in plants to fill this room. Every single one of them died and produced so much fruit flies. You're probably still going to see fruit flies. The place is infested with fruit flies because of this. But once again, our ethos is not like, oh crap, we just wasted $30,000. Our ethos is we're going to spend $300,000 in a much bigger space. So thank God that we figured out that when you buy the wrong plants, when you overwater them, and when you do something else, you end up with millions of fruit flies and dead plants. Once again, it comes to this ethos of you want to throw things in gated fashion against the wall first, try small things, learn before you scale up. Go to the next page. I'll come back to this at the end, but this is kind of a backward-looking view at a bunch of programs we have internally that create behaviors or reinforce behaviors that we think lead to innovation. So the kind of behaviors are on the left. Think like an owner, independent thinking, seeking feedback, iteration, and think like the customer. Interestingly enough, my wife works at a large financial institution downtown. They're going through kind of it's like 50,000 people work for this company, and they're going to become innovative all of a sudden. And so she just went to a seminar. It's Be Innovative Now, and run by a very famous consulting firm. But basically, the same 5 things they listed in their own words. So I felt somewhat justified that through the School of Hard Knocks we've learned similar things. I'm not going to go into every one, but what we've done from an environment perspective is we've set up certain recurring programs that reinforce these behaviors that we think are important. And you may have a different set of behaviors that you guys think is important. For example, number 1 is think like an owner. We want every employee, from a brand new employee, we have some brand new employees sitting here. We want everyone to think like an owner. Think like Charlie and Megan. Think like the CEO and have that perspective on everything. But you can't do that if you don't have information. So we instituted a bunch of recurring programs that give people all the information. So every week of the year, 52 weeks out of the year, we have an all-company meeting at 12:30 Mondays here in New York. London calls in, San Francisco calls in, and we have an open book. We give all the results that happened for the entire week. We have another group called MV21. These are peer-voted. We may have talked about this on the culture tour, but the 21 people who are perceived as the biggest leaders in the company as voted by the rest of the company. So we set up these recurring programs that once again reinforce this notion of think like an owner. And we've done that. This is kind of we put together this grid and kind of backwards looking. These were programs that we found worked over time, but they really did contribute in their own way to creating an environment of innovation.
Leaders in revenue?
Leaders in anything. Generally, yes. Everyone is responsible for revenue and culture, but leaders. Go to the next page. The next few pages go through some, I think, common issues that we've had, and I think most organizations have, and how we've overcome them. So it's a little tactical, but I think it's been useful for us. So we call agile prioritization. I think 2 things typically happen when you have a lot to do. You have 100. Everyone has a list of 100 things to do. What do you actually do?
Sorry.
The common mistake are these 2. One is you do like 5 things and you give it each 20%, and they all come out kind of like mediocre junk. That's one typical solution. I bias on this other side where I put kind of my horse blinders on and I just do one thing really, really, really well and let everything else kind of wither on the vine. That's not good either, because whoever else is depending on you, they're hearing from you, other potential projects that you could nurture along and water, you're not doing. We call these, the first, it's called hedging. You do 5 things, becomes 20, becomes 100, but at the end of the day, especially look back a week, a month, a year, like nothing really happened that was that great. And then being singularly focused on the right here, you'll often find that the same kind of thing happens. You're not making material progress across a bunch of things. You're just kind of if you go to the next page, the solution here, it's very simple, but you'll hear this term a lot here at Next Jump, 60-20. You'll hear people ask, what's your 60-20 this week? Your 60 is what you're going to spend the most time on. So 60% of a 5-day work week, that's 3 full days. So you're going to spend 3 full days, the majority of which you're focused on your 60. And 20 is your secondary project, but it's 1 full day. That still leaves another day. If you do all the math there, the other missing 20% is another day to do all the other noise that comes up. But by committing to doing something, I'm going to spend the majority of my time on one main thing, but then pick at least one other thing that I'm still putting 8 hours or more is significant amount of effort. But now you have at least 2 things that you've kicked the ball forward on, one of which you've made real material progress on. And I can't tell you, in the corporate world especially, this happens a lot. People, you look back a year, you look back a week, you look back a day, week, month, year, and you think like, what did I really do that was awesome? That was truly, changed the business. And you come up with like nothing. You can go through long periods of time where really nothing substantive was really accomplished. That was really kind of net new, that you really made a difference on. Contrast that, if you adopt this, you can go through periods where you look back and every single week you're doing at least one thing that makes a difference. And if you go through a whole year of doing 52 things that makes a difference, and your whole team goes through 52 weeks of making a difference every single week, that's huge. But it requires really dedicated focus. See, the biggest trip up to doing this though is that this requires saying no to a lot of things. You're saying yes to 2 things, but you really have to deprioritize and put the minimum amount in other things. Next page. Another thing we talk a lot about and look to prevent is what we call useless innovation. Go to the next page. This is in particular looking at engineers, but definitely applies to the business side. I'm curious if it applies in education also. But typically when engineers, especially when you come out of university, there are typically 2 flavors of engineers. You have philosophers and hackers. And they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. Philosophers, they go for quality, they tend to be slow, they want to understand the back end, the coding process, lots of planning, they want everything to be long term. They really, the theory of it really matters, and elegant, beautiful stuff comes out eventually. On the other side, you have hackers. They're about speed, fast, breadth, the front end, making product outcome and users loving it, but more short-term focused. Most engineering schools and science schools tend to produce philosophers, and you kind of come up with this sort of ethos that more robust is always better. Everything has to be perfect from, you have to dot every I. That's how you get into MIT. Honestly, that's how you get A's at MIT, is like you try to do perfect at everything. And the ethos of that produces this kind of bias towards philosophy versus hacking. When you're an early stage company, if you're a startup, you'll go out of business if you hire philosophers. You need to make sure that you hire a hacker. But at the end of the day, the best performers are a little bit of both. And over time, as you mature in your career, you can kind of dial one side or dial the other based on the situation. Go to the next page. You'll see this sign a lot around our office. People typically say, okay, I can do something really fast, or I can do it really well. Like, you choose. Especially when you get frustrated. You're like, I can't do all this stuff. I can do one thing really well, or I can do it really fast. But I'm not going to be able to do it really fast and really well. Go to the next page. Our response to that, my response to that, is that speed and quality are in fact like they're brothers. The way you get quality is by being fast, because that's how you discover the problems, that's how you iterate through things, that's how you avoid getting stuck in some theory that may be wrong. But through rapid, fast iteration, that's how you learn. And when you learn, that is how you make really good quality. If you go to the next page, this graph I often have drawn for new engineers here, where this is kind of the trajectory of your career. When you typically start a new engineer, that level 1 is kind of, you tend to be slow, you tend to be in that philosophy mode, you tend to be, I want everything to be perfect, I don't want to get criticized, I don't want to make a mistake. The result is that you tend to build slowly, you tend to make things that are fragile. The code isn't robust because other people aren't really commenting on it, other people aren't giving feedback on the product. Then eventually a crisis occurs where I'm releasing stuff, I'm building stuff, but people don't get it. It's not working. For some reason, it's not working. That's where the finger pointing started. It's because they didn't get enough time. It's because the idea was wrong. Who knows? Most ideas will never work. So there's lots of ways to point fingers. But what you want to get to, my aspiration for our engineers and our business people, is to have the experience where you can actually dial the fast side, the hacker side, or dial up the robust philosopher side as needed based on the situation. Because over time, you can't, if you're trying to do everything perfect, you're not going to succeed at whatever you're doing. If you try to do everything kind of shortcut mode and hack everything together, you're not going to succeed. So you need to have both of those skills, and it's really creating that judgment over time that creates, I think, really great engineers, but applies to just about any discipline. The next page. So that was the slides we'd put together. I think summarizing that, and I'd given this a few weeks ago to another group. I think if there's one piece of advice I would give you from my experience here, it's that grid that we had of behaviors that matter to us, and then setting up programs and rituals that actually reinforce those behaviors. Because by having those, that's how you create cultural change, by making programs that happen every single week or every single month, but they happen again and again and again. And it keeps reinforcing whatever behavior, whatever idea that you want to reinforce. Because if you don't do that, the culture will change. That's the mechanism of changing it. So I think with that, it's almost on time. I think we have a few minutes for questions, and then we're going to hand off to my